a d4, a d6, a d8, a d10, and rarely a d12. These dice are the defining feature for 35 out of 37 weapons in D&D 5e. The other two don't even use dice, and nobody uses them anyway. One simple way to add variation to your weapons is to steal from 3rd edition, where similar weapons had different ranges and effects for critical hits. But I wouldn't call this sort of variety the spice of life. What I want, and what a few thousand of you want, is weapon customization. We don't want to have the same longsword from levels 1 to 3 when we find a +1 longsword, and then until level 6 or something when we find one that does a little fire damage. So I'm going to give you 3 better ways to customize weapons that are simple to add to your game. Because I'm Bob, and this is where we learn how to have more fun playing D&D together. This first method was actually inspired by this video's sponsor, Valda's Spire of Secrets. And if you're one of the other few thousand people who want more weapons and customization, you'll definitely want to check out this epic expansion to D&D 5e. It has about 100 new weapons like the Dwarven War Axe, Atlatl, Boomerang, Doomerang, the Great Bow, and perhaps my favorite, the Scorpion on a Stick. It has a bunch of new weapon properties, some of which we're going to talk about in a second, and way more than just weapon stuff. New races, classes, subclasses for each core class, feats, optional rules, and over 100 new spells like finger guns. Link below. So weapons with the new Elegant property require a dexterity score of 16 or higher to wield, and Super Heavy does the same thing for strength-based weapons. Some examples of Elegant weapons are the Edged Card, which is a lot like a dagger, light, finesse, thrown, but it does a d8 instead of a d4, and the Hook Sword, which is kind of like a short sword, light and finesse, but it has the Trip property and uses a d10 instead of a d6. And one example of a super heavy weapon is that 20-pound Dwarven War Axe that does 2d8 damage. The point is, these are non-magical weapons, but they're awesome. They're more than just reskinning and reflavoring because they do more damage or have additional features, and giving them a prerequisite ability score gives your characters this upgrade to look forward to. In the meantime, they'll be more creative with the unlocked weapons they already have but wouldn't normally choose. So, my simple homebrew system for this style of customization is to use a similar approach to dual wielding. Anybody can dual wield, but they only add their strength or dex to the damage if they have the fighting style or feat that allows it. So for ability score requirements, anybody can still use any weapon they're proficient with, but they only add their strength or dex to the damage if they meet the ability score requirement. To make it easy to remember, you could match the requirement and the damage die. D4 weapon requires 14 ability score, D6, 16, etc. But that's a little high, so I'd probably shift it down to D4 to 10, D6 to 12, etc. But if that's not simple enough, this next method for customization definitely is. Just populate your game world with different versions of the same weapon that use different damage dice. Yeah, there's no legitimate reason that a dagger can't be a D6 or a D8 or higher. Maybe it's silvered or reinforced or of fine elven make. This method allows you to give mundane enemies a slight edge in battle, and it can surprise and excite your experienced players when an apparently mundane weapon is more powerful than it should be. Then later, when your PC finds that +1 dagger that does d4 damage, they'll probably keep their d8 dagger and switch between the two for different kinds of encounters, because that sort of variety is useful. And my favorite new method for weapon customization also relies on the damage die, and it takes inspiration from D&D 5e's most elegant mechanic, advantage and disadvantage. In other words, it makes weapons a little more fun because you get to roll more dice. But it breaks down to tiers of quality for weapons. And for me, this comes right out of the video game RPGs of my childhood. You might start out with a tarnished or broken longsword that still uses a d6, but it actually does 2d6 take the lowest. Then, soon enough, your character can afford to have that weapon fixed, buy a new one, or just find a better one and upgrade to a standard or sturdy short sword that uses the basic 1d6, and later upgrade again to a silvered or reinforced or elven short sword that does 2d6 take the highest. So just this small tweak of the mechanics gives each weapon a few different levels of detail. And then you can combine some of these methods. Get a strong short sword that does 1d10 or 2d8 take the highest, but you'll need a 16 strength or dex score to add that modifier to the damage. However, this combination of methods is where we go from simple way to customize weapons to an entirely new weapon system. So if you'd like to see a follow-up video where I try to make that work, give this one a thumbs up and leave your ideas down in the comments. Thanks again to Valda Spire of Secrets. Thank you to our sponsor, Describe, to all the wonderful Bob World Builder patrons, and you for your support here on YouTube. Keep building.